Welcome into the Dynasty Market Watch, where yesterday's price is not today's price. And now we are part of the Bulletproof family of podcasts. If you're joining for the first time, welcome in. I'm Todd Halverson. I am joined by Brian O'Leary and Matt Davis. We like to skip the pleasantries, get started quick around here. So last week we did a 4-round Dynasty startup mock draft, and today we're going to continue that with rounds 5 through 8. So if you want to get the full scope, I'd recommend go and listen to that episode from last week. It can be found in the Dynasty Market Watch podcast feed on Spotify, Apple, so you can get rounds 1 through 4 there and have a good idea of where we're going to be at today. So like I said, this week's going to be rounds 5 through 8. We're just going to continue in our same pick slots. So Brian has picks 1, 4, 7, and 10. Matt has 2, 5, 8, 11, and I've got 3, 6, 9, 12. So we've already built out some teams. We're going to continue the roster builds of those teams. Before we get started, Brian, anything that I've missed here?
Yeah, you mostly nailed it. I just want to kind of reinforce, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple and you want to follow along with the draft board visually, we will post that on our Twitter feed, market_watch1. Or if you want to get really fancy out there, we're also available on YouTube if you want to follow along as the picks are updated one by one. But yeah, I think you hit most of it. With that being said, Todd is up on the clock. So why don't we quickly hop over into that and get it started?
Yesterday's price is not today's price. Why?
Yesterday's price is not today's price. So I'm on the clock at the 5:01. This is team 12 that had the 12 slot. So this team had Anthony Richardson in round 1, CeeDee Lamb at the turn round 2, and we did a third round reversal. So this was at the 3:01, took Justin Fields. And then at the 4:12, I was deciding between, if you remember back from last week, I was deciding between Michael Pittman or DJ Moore. And I'm just going to follow it up and take my DJ Moore here. So I'm going to have the double stack with Pittman and Richardson, and then DJ Moore and Justin Fields for the time being. It sounds like Justin Fields is not going to be there much longer, but the double stack there, DJ Moore there at the 5:01 pick.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping DJ Moore would last one more pick. But so at the 11th spot, I have Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and T. Higgins right now. So sort of a zero QB build, which I don't usually love doing. Still don't love the quarterbacks here. So if I was going to take a quarterback right here, I think I would take Tua. But I'm going to keep it rolling here, and I'm going to take Rome Odunze, which would be the 107 here in the early 5th.
Yeah, and pretty good value because, I mean, we took the 106 at the 310. So we're a round and a half later at 107. Just to kind of give an idea of where DJ Moore was. DJ Moore was wide receiver, is that 22? If you include rookies.
Quick, we have two rookie receivers. That'd be our third rookie receiver. And then we have...
Yeah, so DJ Moore would be wide receiver 20, and then if it's Rome Odunze at the 107, he'd make wide receiver 21. So I think both of those are pretty good values. Brian, you're up at 10 at the 503, which is your team 10. Also, just kind of give an idea of like some of the players that are available right now. I think that'd be kind of helpful for the listener.
Yeah, definitely. So I was in the 10 slot. I took Caleb Williams, followed that up with Kyler Murray, Jahmyr Gibbs, Drake London. So I have a nice foundation of young, hopefully stars. Just kind of recapping some best available guys that I'm looking at right now in this range. And remember, we're drafting for tight end premium. So I'm looking at Dalton Kincaid. I'm looking at Hawkinson. I don't love that he's missing time, obviously, probably a lot of the season. I'm looking at Rashee Rice. I know Matt's going to love this. JSN's a possibility. Zay Flowers. Looking in the running back range, it's ETN, Kenneth Walker, Kyron Williams, Saquon Barkley. We got Tua. We got Goff, 108. Since I have this pretty strong young core already, I think I want to go and take another receiver here. And so I'm going to follow this team up and grab Rashee Rice.
Yeah, so this team stays young. So you have Caleb Williams in the first, but you've got a young team with this group, but Rashee Rice seems like he's probably going to be like a late second redraft pick. in like 1 QB redraft. So he's going to be I would think a strong, at least like a wide receiver 2 for next year. If London can like move forward and actually be usable, then this team could be, albeit young, a pretty nice option for 2024 even.
This is quickly shaping up to be like one of my, I think it might be my favorite. We talked about it last week to end the show, and I hopefully we'll have some time to kind of recap what our teams look like after the 8th round. But yeah, this is definitely a team that I'm excited about, and I think they can sneaky contend, make a move here or there, win now wise, and really shift the scales.
Yeah, so the next one up here at the 504, this team has Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. It took the 104, which I'm presuming to also be a quarterback, and then Devontae Smith in the 4th round. The Devontae Smith pick in that 4th round, I guess he was wide receiver, like 16, 17, somewhere in there. I just don't love taking receivers in that big grouping. I'd prefer to get the guys toward the end of the tier. And in this circumstance, the end of that tier kind of became DJ Moore, Pittman. They're kind of like the afterthoughts. And kind of speaking to that tier as a whole, like the beginning of that tier is typically Jalen Waddle. I don't have any issues with Jalen Waddle, the player, but taking that guy at the beginning of the massive tier just feels like horrible value to me. But anyways, Devontae Smith in the middle of the tier. I didn't really love that pick looking back in hindsight. But here at the 504, this team with the 2 good quarterbacks, you've got the quarterback at the rookie pick 104. So this team could be staring at a possible have to kind of rebuild it year one, unless we can move that pick. But just to keep the options open, I think ETN makes a lot of sense here, or Kyron Williams. I'm going to take the gamble and go Kyron Williams, that he holds that job and he can be kind of like the baby CMC. And obviously we have a history of late round running backs or undrafted running backs that really perform great, and then they fall off the face of the earth because of the draft capital. I'm going to take the gamble here that Kyron Williams doesn't fit that mold. But even here in the 5th round, a guy that can be a top 3 running back in 2024, I think is a pretty good get.
Matt and I were kind of talking off air about what is Kyron Williams' value, and I think this is right around essentially what he should probably be worth a little later than 107. I like him more than 108 probably, so I think this is a good pick for you.
Yeah, I like that we kind of left off or picked up where we left off last week with Todd so far sniping me 2 out of 2 times. Every single time the guy I want, he takes. So team 8 here, I have Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, Breece Hall, and Tank Dell. And some of the guys I'm looking at right here in the 5th round is like, I want to take a wide receiver, but I don't love the value here. Like Debo is probably my top wide receiver left on the board. I would not take JSN, Pickens, or Flowers here, or DK. But
so you would have Debo over DK.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think Debo. I mean, I just took Debo 1 pick after DK in a startup that Brian and I are doing right now, and I do feel like they're in the same tier, but just the age difference, that is a little bit concerning. Like Debo's already 28; he's like kind of getting into that elder statesman of the room. But there is a massive gap on points per game. I mean, Debo was back end wide receiver 1 again this year, and and DK's not. So yeah, I mean, I am optimistic about Debo in a 2024 sense, but I think you do need to mention, let's not glaze over the fact that Jordan Love was taken ahead of Justin Herbert on this team. If anybody didn't listen to last week's.
Yeah, I'd encourage you guys to go back and listen to last week's episode. To any new listeners, I am a Packers fan. I am a homer. I do not deny that. But I would say that the only doubt with Jordan Love is a mid to late 1st rounder is he needs to repeat it. Everybody says if he repeats it next year, he's in that top tier. I have no doubts on him repeating it.
I'm just going to back you up a little bit on Jordan Love, and then we'll keep things rolling. But I think Jordan Love in the mid second of a startup is just an absolute smash spot, points per game basically like heads up with CJ Stroud. Obviously, CJ Stroud's a little bit younger, so he can maybe take another step forward. He basically heads up with Justin Herbert points per game. I mean, there's clear justification to have him in that Burrow, Herbert, CJ Stroud tier of like pocket passing quarterbacks that don't get a lot on the ground. And so, yeah, like you said, he just needs to do it again. And if he does, he will be going in this 108 slot. And I've seen some people on Twitter talking about how they've seen Jordan Love go with the 108 in startups. So it's not that crazy. It's not as crazy as people want to think it is, just because of kind of the shock factor of seeing Jordan Love in that late first.
Like I said, there's no receiver I like. I don't love going a second running back this early, but I do think ETN is the best value on the board. So I'll go ahead and take ETN here at 505. And this brings up the Joe Burrow team.
It's an interesting build you got there for sure. It could be very fun. So this is 506. So this team has Joe Burrow, rookie 102, which was Marvin Harrison Jr. is our assumption, Chris Olave, Kyle Pitts. So I have 2 receivers, tight end, and a quarterback. I think I want to so where my mind is, I'm thinking about, do I want to get Tua, or is it not worth it and I can get somebody later that can kind of similar production, maybe a little bit older? And I think I'm leaning that way. So I'm going to move away from him. And
so while you're thinking, just like the best quarterbacks available right now, you've got Tua, Goff, Cousins, Stafford, Will Levis, Bryce Young. So we're starting to get, if you're looking at just 2024, Aaron Rodgers, you're starting to get down to the nitty gritty of quarterbacks. We kind of chewed them up and spit them out earlier. Deshaun Watson, I took at the 307, and then the last quarterback we took was Purdy at the 401. So yeah, the quarterbacks are starting to get a little bit thin.
It is thin, and I'm just kind of going to roll the dice here and kind of gamble because of the youth that I have with this team, that if I pivot and I'm more of a rebuild, I'm fine with that. And that's kind of what we talked about last week with the versatility of this group, especially. Matt's going to love this pick. I'm taking JSN. I'm going with the upside.
I get it.
Get that Ohio State trio.
Yeah, you've got Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Olave, JSN. So yeah, this team is probably a play for the future team, but it's not. This is the type of build that you take and you say, I'm going to build for the future, and then all of a sudden you look up week 5 and you're 4-1 because Pitts hits and JSN takes that step forward, and you're like, wow, I can actually compete. Let me go trade for a Josh Jacobs or some kind of win now running back type.
And I'm also trying to think like other league mates. Like this is a big, like you're talking about, like this is a home run swing team, and I think JSN fits that mold pretty well.
And I think also we all kind of like to keep as much flexibility as possible in startups. So like once you take Tua or Jared Goff, you should be trying to compete next year. I don't know that there's a ton of value raised to be had there.
All right, so team 6, this is the 507. I took Justin Jefferson in round 1. I think getting Justin Jefferson in round 1 is my preferred startup move right now, kind of a zag. I've always been go QB to start startups, and I'm going to pivot a little bit this year, and I've already done it in the startup that I mentioned earlier that Brian and I are in, where I also took Justin Jefferson at the 106. So this team has Justin Jefferson at the 106, Garrett Wilson at the 207, Deshaun Watson at the 307, and then Devon Achane at the 406. I think Achane in the 4th is a pretty good value when you consider basically almost around and a half behind Gibbs. And I've seen him go even a little bit further than the start that we just did. So this team has 2 receivers, a quarterback, and a running back. The running backs now are kind of chewed up. Not a lot of value there. So basically I'm deciding here between the receivers and then maybe Kincaid. And I think given that we have 2 strong receivers, this team is probably in a position to try to contend, especially we've already taken a running back in the first 4 rounds. So I'm going to go Kincaid here as my best available tight end. I got a little bit concerned about Kincaid late in the year, I think, along with everybody else. But the last 4 or 5 weeks, and including the playoffs, he's been pretty good. So I like, especially in tight end premium where you're just catching the ball and you're getting 1.5 points. I think he's a pretty valuable option. I don't see him in the same tier as Laporta, McBride, either of those guys or even Bowers. But I think this next tier of tight ends, I think he's a really good option. So I'm going to go Kincaid here in the mid.
So Todd, this is tight end number 6 if we're including Bowers, which we are right now.
Yeah.
And it I'm sure there's some listeners thinking like, where is Hawkinson's value for you? Obviously, we talked about the injury briefly. Like, where do you think the range? Like, obviously, this would be he if he was not injured, he'd be getting drafted already or pretty soon, right? So,
yeah,
what is that new range?
I think that if he were not injured, he'd be going in the 4th, like right after Andrews, right after McBride, probably, or around where Andrews is going, which Andrews in this draft went at the 312. So that's probably where he goes healthy. The issue is that obviously he's probably going to miss all of next year. My concern is that if you take your 5th round pick or your 6th round pick and punt it, it's very difficult to come back from that and say, I'm going to be a contender this year. You got to have a lot of things go right for you. So I think it's got to be build specific of like, hey, I'm willing to kind of throw in the towel for year 1, which is a move that I do a lot in startups. But even in the 5th, I think it's a little bit early. I would say probably somewhere in the 6th is where I'd be comfortable doing it. And I like Hawkinson. I've probably got like 35-40% shares of Hawkinson. I really like the environment that he's in with the Vikings where they throw as much as they do. But in the 5th round, taking a guy that can't help me at all next year, that's a little steep for me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. At the 5 spot here, so I have Lamar Jackson at in the 1st round, Puka Nacua in the 2nd round, Malik Neighbors at the 105 in the 3rd round, and then Brandon Ayuk in the 4th round. And I think I'm going to go ahead and stop the Tua slide here. I'll go ahead and take Tua as my QB2 here. I think it makes sense with this build. 3 young receivers I like a lot, Lamar and Tua. It's not a bad start for me.
That's a fun one.
What was the rookie pick that you had? So you have Puka and Ayuk.
105, which again, we're doing players, not picks. So I chose Malik Neighbors at the 105.
Yeah, so you got 3 fun receivers built around a couple quarterbacks. That's a fun team. I mean, if Tua can kind of bounce back even just a little bit, he's probably a 4th round pick next year. He was awesome at the beginning of last year, and then just things fell off. My concern with Tua is the whole Tyreek thing is just like how reliant he is on Tyreek just taking them to the house.
Yeah, I think the move is just sell Tua when the weather is warm.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. There can be some value gain here where you can flip him later.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot, Matt. I was kind of hoping for this team. Now I'm going to kind of have to pivot a little bit here. My thought process is I'm looking at I'm at 104, so this is 509, and I see the next 3 teams. 2 of the 3 have at least 2 quarterbacks. So my thought process is I need a quarterback with C.J. Stroud, Bijan, Trey McBride, and Nico Collins, but I think I can wait until it comes back to me at 604. So I'm gonna gamble there, and I'm going to take Zay Flowers at the 509.
So Brian, you took Flowers in this startup that we're doing right now. Do you remember what round you got him in? Was it around this time?
Let me check.
Might have been an early 6th.
It was around this range. That draft that we're talking about has gone a little bit differently than ours, which is actually kind of fun. And
so you got him at the 509, so same spot. You're consistent. Yeah, so you got him at the 509 as wide receiver, roughly like 22, 23-ish. So, yeah, pretty good value. I think Flowers is probably starting to get a little bit underrated. His peripherals for a rookie were pretty good. I would expect this could be the end of the road for OBJ. So you kind of get maybe an increase on the maybe some of those designed plays. Maybe OBJ is getting a few of those every now and then that maybe could go Flowers' way next year, where they're just trying to keep OBJ happy. But I think Flowers is probably a little bit underrated at this point because he wasn't the sexy receiver coming in with like JSN, Addison, even QJ were. He was kind of like that fourth wheel. And so he was up and down throughout the year. I think overall, I think he's a talented player. So I think he's probably a little bit of a buy right now.
Yeah, I've kind of gone through cycles with him as anyone that's been a long time listener has seen. I was super high when he first started, and then I overcorrected because of the crazy market shift, and I'm coming back around, I think, for sure.
All right, so I'm going to make this one quick. This is my least favorite team that I've got going. I'm going to blame this one on me trying to host it too much last week, and this team is just hot dog water. It's Jalen Hurts in round 1 at the 103, which, by the way, I think Jalen Hurts is very underrated right now. If you can get him in a trade for really any of those guys that I've talked about in the pocket passing tier of like Stroud, Burrow, Herbert, I'm still all in on Jalen Hurts. He outscored them by a wide margin this year. I think he's going to outscore them again next year. I just think he's underrated. He's really so. Jalen Hurts in round 1. This team took Drake May in round 2 as the 103, and then in round 3 took Brock Bowers, who I think is probably going to end up being my tight end 1 when it's all said and done, which is a little bit bullish, which I get. And then in round 4, I mentioned this earlier, but Jalen Waddle at the very beginning of that massive tier of receivers. And I'm just going to rattle off those receivers in that tier really quick that I consider a massive tier. Waddle, Nico, Ayuk, Tank Dell, Devontae Smith, London, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, DJ Moore. You could even argue Zay Flowers. I probably wouldn't consider him in that tier. I consider him JSN Rice probably at a tier back, but I would also consider the guy that I'm about to take in that same tier, and that's DK Metcalf. But my point being, taking Waddle there, just a massive mistake. But in a draft where we can't trade back, we're doing multiple teams. Obviously, it's kind of have to take what you get. I would not be taking any receivers at the beginning of that tier. I'm trying to trade back to the end of that tier or take a different position that might be already at the end of the tier, such as like an Achane was maybe available at that time. But that team now has Hurts, Drake May, Brock Bowers, and then 2 receivers, Waddle and Metcalf, and that team is hot dog water.
Yeah, before I get to my pick real quick on the Hurts thing, I do want to say strongly agree that he is undervalued right now, man. Like friend of the pod, Jacob Sanderson, I think said in his most recent ranks he has him 9 or 10. People are down on Hurts. That's a great buy opportunity right now.
Well, Matt, we are on the Bulletproof family of podcasts now, so I think our listeners are pretty accustomed to who Jacob is. So, Jacob, if we want to debate Hurts versus any of these other guys, I will.
So at the 2 spot, I love this team. This is an all gas, no brakes team. Josh Allen at the 102. I got Christian McCaffrey at 211, Tyreek Hill at the 311, and Jonathan Taylor at the 4-2 spot. So Allen, McCaffrey, Tyreek, and JT. And I am going to go Debo here.
Debo Samuel. Yeah.
Yep. Think he fits this build great. And yeah, Brian knew that pick was coming.
That was the most obvious pick of all time.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. And it makes total sense for your build and for the manager that is drafting.
And that team just won the league, by the way. I mean, that team has Josh Allen, CMC, Tyreek, Jonathan Taylor, and Debo. I mean, if I'm sitting in a draft and I see that team happening, I'm immediately pivoting and saying, well, let's consider 2025.
So Brian's team at the 1 spot is drawing his sword like Jon Snow right now in that famous gift. So
all the horses riding at him. Yeah.
Yes, Allen versus Mahomes. Our dynasty league is shaping up like the NFL.
Yep, definitely.
So I guess Brian's got the leg up with Mahomes and AJ Brown.
So on the turn, I was hoping that Todd would let DK drop because I knew Todd that Matt would, and he was going to take Debo. But once DK went, I knew both of those targets were going to be gone. I was dreaming of having one of those guys. So with this, I'm kind of back.
Brian, while you're kind of thinking through it, I think we just hit a teardrop. And I think this happened in our draft that we just had as well. Well, actually, there's maybe one more player available that's part of that tier, but I do think that we are coming up on an absolute cliff.
Yeah, so this is where I'm kind of going to go a little bit off script, I think. And this is something that like Todd mentioned before, like we're not doing trade back or trade up or all that type of stuff. I would definitely try and shop this pick. But so anyways, I have Patrick Mahomes, AJ Brown, Mark Andrews, and Brock Purdy. So I have 2 quarterbacks solidified. I have a wide receiver 1. I have a tight end 1. I don't love doing this, but I think I want see, I'm even going back and forth now.
Who are you deciding between? You got 2 picks.
I'm going a couple different routes. I like 108 because I like some of those guys and I think they're being undervalued. I like Jordan Addison in this spot. I like Devontae Adams in this spot. I like Jaden Reed in this spot. I wouldn't hate stashing Hawk. Yeah, so like it's kind of one of those things where it's like, do I want to like mount up and draw the sword like Matt's saying with Jon Snow's situation, or do I want to kind of maybe still be able to compete but also have some more longevity on my side? So the first pick I'm going to do, I have 2 picks here. 5-12, I'll take Jordan Addison.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And just comment really quick, Brian, in the startup that we're doing right now, Jacob Sanderson took DK. Next pick, I took Debo, and the following pick, you took Jordan Addison. I think that was at the very beginning of the 6th round. So it played out the exact same. We are very consistent.
If anything, you know that we're practicing what we preach, at least, at this point. And I didn't even realize that was the case. That's funny that I literally just went back to back, like, oh, I don't know, and then picked literally the guy I just picked in a draft. Okay, and this is where I'm going to go a little off script. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm going to go 108. And that's going to be Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm
that
swinging.
108's a weird one right now where you're like where we're actually picking the player. We're trying to identify roster builds is kind of the purpose behind that. I mean, in most of your drafts, you're going to be just taking the pick. But you have been high on Brian Thomas Jr. I'm looking forward to us talking more incoming rookies. I've started to kind of input a bunch of data and stuff. So I've got some takes ready for some of these receivers. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, the appeal of the 108 specifically is that one of these receivers after the top 3 are going to get a great landing spot in draft capital. But I have no problem with the Brian Thomas pick right there. Makes sense. With this win now team, I will go, to me, the obvious pick here is Jared Goff. Get my locked and loaded QB2. Jared Goff is a phenomenal QB2 in win now dynasty build. So going to lock him in with Josh Allen, CMC, Tyreek, JT, and Debo.
All right, so I'm on the clock at the 6:03 with the hot dog water team. This team, we're just going to start having to take shots. This team's not winning this year. We've got 2 incoming rookies, Waddle, Metcalf with Hurts. So taking shots, we're going to stay away from running back. And
is this the Hockenson team?
No, that's a good point. This is a good spot to take Hockenson. I like it. Good idea, Matt. So this team's not going to win this year. Let's take Hockenson. There should be some value build on that pick. I would think by 2025, we're looking at Hockenson back in that mid-4th. So I should get some easy value gain there. All right.
Yeah, I was a Hockenson doubter this year. Todd took advantage of me and traded me the classic trap of Pitts for Hockenson, and he turned out right about that. So,
and here we are, Hockenson a round and a half after Pitts.
Only because of an injury, though. So, team 4 here, CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud, Bijan, Trey McBride, Nico Collins, Zay Flowers. I'm going to continue to kind of swing here. Same thing. I'm hoping Pittsburgh gets a QB upgrade and there's some value spike. Even if I don't love this guy, I think he's capable of a lot of good things if he's not an idiot. So I will go with George Pickens here.
And that's who I was considering before Matt brought Hawkinson to light. So I think we were on the same page about where the value was with Hawkins or with Pickens there.
Yeah, and with this team at the 5 spot, again, I got Lamar, Puka, Malik Neighbors, Ayuk, and Tua. There's a couple different guys I'm looking at here. Like, this would not be a bad spot for Ken Walker, I don't think. Saquon. But I'm actually going to take one of Brian's favorite players who he constantly pounds the table on that is underrated. I'm going to take George Kittle here.
George Kittle, baby.
Yeah.
All right. So
just all reliable.
Team, yeah, you mentioned this. You mentioned once you take Tua, you kind of need to be thinking about contending. So this team has Lamar and Tua. It's got 3 young receivers, but receivers that should be able to produce for you, and then adds Kittle. So yeah, that team's on its way to contending. This is the team with Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, Watson, Achane, and Kincaid. I view this team as also trying to contend. We are looking for that second quarterback, but the quarterbacks available are pretty gross. Probably wait several rounds to grab one. So I think it's maybe a time to shore up that second running back spot. And so we will be deciding between Saquon and Ken Walker. Just from a value standpoint, I think Ken Walker is probably more reliable to maintain his value, while I'd probably expect Barkley to maybe produce a little more. But I think the margin is minimal. So we're going to go Ken Walker here. I do think he's a clear tier down from where ETN was taken, I think, the last running back.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, for any new listeners, I am the clear Deshaun Watson hater of the group, not even off the field stuff. I just don't think he's any good anymore. But if I'm wrong about that, this team is shaping up very nice.
All right, so I'm at 607. This is the Ohio State plus Kyle Pitts team. So Joe Burrow, Marvin Harrison, Olave, Kyle Pitts, JSN. And I'm going to go again. I'm between 2 players right now. It's Jaden Reed and it's 109. I'm going to go 109 and draft Troy Franklin from Oregon, receiver.
Yeah, so it was interesting to me you took Brian Thomas before Troy Franklin. I'm still kind of early in my rookie research. It seems like Troy Franklin is sort of the consensus wide receiver for right now.
He is.
I think in fantasy circles, yes, but I've seen a couple, like Mel Kiper's big board. I think he was like 10th or 11th on his big board at receiver. And like, obviously I'm not touting like Mel Kiper is this like savant scout, but he is well connected and has pretty good idea of draft capital indication. So I'm a little bit concerned about Troy Franklin's draft capital probably at this point, but we're obviously limited on our information.
In most situations, you're also drafting a draft slot versus a player too. So so like there's always that shift that if we wouldn't be locked into Troy Franklin if Troy Franklin goes in the 3rd round kind of thing. But
let's call an audible here, and let's just say that like from here on out, we're just kind of designating a position. So maybe not just say like Brian Thomas or Troy Franklin. Just say that you have a rookie receiver that you've probably drafted.
Okay, I like the I like the idea of like actually bringing the player at least to the forefront, but like we're not locked into like this has to be who the pick is, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So here is the notable Jordan Love team at the 608.
Yeah, we got Love, Dak Prescott, Breece Hall, Tank Dell, ETN.
This team's a contender now.
Getting into round 6 and only having one wide receiver who was a rookie that broke his leg last year on a team that's trying to contend is a little bit of an adventure. I think I am going to. So the guys I'm thinking of right now, I'm between 2 guys right now. Man, Stephon Diggs has a lot of stink on him right now.
A whole lot of stink. And I mean, obviously, we're drafting against each other, but we're trying to bring some value to the listener here. There, like Devontae Adams versus Stephon Diggs, it's a clear Devontae Adams, probably tier ahead for me. I think Devontae Adams is probably like one of the best talents of all time at wide receiver, and I just think nothing has changed for him, and I think he could have a monster year next year.
I'm pretty concerned about the Raiders quarterback situation. They're not in a great spot to draft a rookie. I just have no idea what they're planning to do. I kind of liked some of the things defensively Antonio Pierce did last year, but he's not a coach that inspires a lot of confidence in the offense. But I hear you. I do think Devontae is better than Diggs right now, but I'm going to keep some flexibility with this team and also get a little stack going here with Jordan Love. And I'm going to take Jaden Reed here. I think that's probably the safest pick.
And that's about where he went in our most recent startup too.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 6 or early 7, I believe.
And we'll probably do like a recap of that startup, maybe next week or the following week, and just kind of give an idea of like where we're seeing things going right now, what the values are. And I mean, it's a pretty sharp league. I mean, if you click into I think it's on our Dynasty Market Watch Twitter account, click into the league, you can see kind of a marquee who's who list of players in there. So pretty sharp group. And so I would say if you want to look at kind of like what future ADP might look like, while it's going to be obviously different league to league, kind of gives you an idea of what it is. Because like if you're on YouTube right now and you're looking at the ADP, it's an absolute mess. I mean, you've got Austin Eckler as the 28th ranked player, Travis Kelce at 18. Like you can't really look at sleeper ADP right now. It's a total joke.
Definitely not.
Yeah, so this is team 9 at the 609. So it took Herbert Lawrence in rounds 1 and 2. Then we took the 104, so that was another quarterback. So this team's kind of in limbo with Devontae Smith, then Kyron Williams. The plan here would be to trade the 104 at some point for another stud player and maybe hopefully contend this year since we took Kyron Williams at the 504. So here at the 6th round, 609, we will probably go back to the running back well. The receivers are pretty beat up. I mean, you got Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper, probably the 2 best win now receivers. You could go 110. So this team probably going to go back to the running back well, go Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I think that's awesome value. I mean, Saquon in the late 6th, that like he was really good in real life. It's a disaster of a team.
Yeah, he went at the 512 in the startup that we're going right now. So a little bit of value there.
Yeah, I love that pick. That's who I was looking at. I was already dreaming of that backfield of him and Jahmyr Gibbs with London and Rice at receiver, Caleb and Kyler and quarterback. So
this is your young team.
This is my young team, but that doesn't mean you have to go all young.
Right.
And I certainly don't want to draft Bryce Young. So I'm going to go Devontae Adams, as Todd said, one of the best receivers ever. There's reports that maybe Russ goes there. Not that Russ is great, but that's certainly an improvement from what he had.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't get an upgrade, I think he probably pushes his way out or gets sent around somewhere else and upgrades his situation, and his value is going to be nice for the next 2 years.
Yeah, and this is my 0 QB team. Chase at the 11 spot, Chase, Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta, T. Higgins, and then Rome Odunze at the 107. So I don't love the quarterbacks here still. I need a quarterback on this team, but also the 12 spot already drafted Richardson and Fields. I don't think they're going to reach for a 3rd QB here with the values. I am going to take what I think is the best value on the board, and it kind of keeps my flexibility open if I want to do a 1-year punt. I'm going to take David Njoku here.
That's who the team 12 was about to take. It's a good pick.
Yeah.
Good pick.
Yeah, I think this is about where he goes. A lot of people have Njoku even over like Hawkinson and Kittle. Njoku is just a hard guy for me to value this year. I don't know how much of that was just Flacco fucking slinging the ball, late breakout. But yeah, great value here in my opinion.
This team 12, took Richardson and Lamb at the turn to start. And I mentioned it last week, but I think that my favorite spot in a startup right now that has 3rd round reversal is this spot. I think there's a tier of about 13 players, and maybe 14 players. And if you can get Richardson, Lamb at the turn, or like a Kyler, if you want to go QB, you could go Kyler, Richardson, and then you get the 301 also. I think that's probably one of my favorite spots. And then also I think I mentioned like in that mid of the first, we can get Justin Jefferson. But this team has Richardson, Lamb, Fields, Pittman, DJ Moore. I would view this team as trying to contend because you've got some guys in the middle of their career like Lamb, Pittman, and DJ Moore. So it's probably about time to find a running back for this team. I was going to go running back with Njoku. I don't love taking Ingram this early. I just cannot stomach Kelsey potentially retiring or even just one more year in a startup at this point. So we'll take a running back to at least get it rolling. And I say that, boy, the running backs are bad. I mean, we've got James Cook, Devontae Williams, Pacheco, Josh Jacobs. We're getting into an ugly spot here.
I do not love the running back values here, but Pacheco and Cook could easily be awesome values. So they're just
James Cook is not scoring touchdowns. Like that's just really rough.
We're gonna have like 3 or 4 receiving touchdowns at least, but he's not getting a lot of red zone touches.
Yeah, we're gonna kind of stick with the tight end here. I don't think it's that good of a value. This is probably a spot, like you mentioned earlier, I'd be trying to trade back and just get like anything possible. But we'll go Evan Ingram at tight end. He had 104 catches this year, which is kind of shocking.
I do not hate that Ingram value at all. I think he's a very undervalued player right now.
Yeah, and it's probably not a pick that I'm going to turn around and be like, oh, he's going in the 5th now in a year from now. But I think at least from he has a chance to stabilize his value and at least be a producer for the season.
Yeah, especially if Ridley's gone.
Yeah, so we'll go Ingram, and then this is just brutal at this point. I think we're going to throw a curveball at the league here, and I threw this same curveball in my startup that I'm in right now, and the curveball is we're going to go Will Levis at the 701 as our 3rd quarterback.
God damn it!
And he potentially could be a trade piece. I view Levis as if he is still the starter this time next year. I just took him at the 701. I think he's probably no later than like mid-5th type player, maybe higher if things go really well. So we'll love it at 701.
Matt, as you got sniped, why don't we first, before we go any further, let's recap rounds 5 and 6. So 501 was DJ Moore. 502 was rookie pick 107, which we're treating as Roma Dunze. 503, Rashee Rice, Kyron Williams, ETN, JSN, Kincaid at 507, Tua 508, Zay Flowers, DK Metcalf, Debo, Jordan Addison 512. At 601, we took rookie 108, Brian Thomas. 602, Jared Goff, TJ Hawkinson, George Pickens 604, George Kittle, Kenneth Walker, and rookie 109, Troy Franklin at 607, Jaden Reed, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Adams, Njoku, Ingram rounding out round 12, and we just started 701 with Will Levis.
Yeah, God, I hate you, Todd. I was about to take Will Levis at 611, and I thought for sure you were going to pass on QB, but I think that Levis pick was a great pick. Man, I'm going to take one of my least favorite players in the NFL, a guy that I've been hating on all season, a guy that I've always compared to Josh Rosen all year.
Oh no.
And I'm just going to light this fucking pick on fire and take Bryce Young here. Maybe he bounces back. I had already clicked him in.
I already clicked him in before you said his name.
I don't have a lot to say.
It's funny because Todd and I are talking about how you can look at our startup and we've made that exact pick around that same round. You will not find Matt taking Bryce Young in a draft very often. This is a pick of necessity, very clearly.
He did go with the 5'10" in our startup that's going on right now.
Yeah, so in that sense, I guess it's a value. This team is young, so God, I hate that pick, but
It's absolutely a value though. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know exactly where I want to go here. And this is the team with Caleb, Kyler, London, Rice, Rashee Rice, and Devontae Adams. I think I could probably. What's that? Yeah.
It's an interesting build with Devontae on the young guys.
Yeah, I don't want to go running back here. So I'm gonna move away from them.
Yeah, running back is gross right now.
Yeah, I just don't think any of that is what I want to involve myself in.
To be fair, everything is gross right now.
Yeah, there's some other win now receivers that I like, but again, I don't love the value. So that's like Terry McLaurin, I don't love. Diggs, I'm not sure what's going on. Cup, I'm not sure what's going on. Evans is good but old. Downs, Amari Cooper. I almost want to take. Oh man, I almost want to take Amari Cooper, but I don't think that's a great value either. I took him at 903 in our current startup, so that's kind of giving me hesitation. My other thought is 110, and 110 is probably the best value pick wise, in my opinion, at this spot. So I'm going to I'll do 110, and I will draft Xavier Worthy, a receiver from Texas,
over Mitchell.
Yeah, that's where Team 9 was going. So Team 9 is 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs. So this team is trying to contend, but we also have and we have Devontae Smith at receiver right now. We were going 110, but we are going to now pivot to bolstering out. We're going to take a dive into the running backs, and I'm just going to take the guy that I like the most, even though it's probably a little bit of bad value. It's a mock, so we'll have some fun. We're going Tyjae Spears at the 704.
Yeah, I think that pick makes sense. So at the 8 spot here, Jordan Love team with Dak Prescott, Breece Hall, Tank Dell, ETN, and Jaden Reed. My thoughts here are between 2 older receivers, Diggs and Mike Evans. And I'm going to just take the guy who was awesome this year and didn't fall off, and I'm going to take Mike Evans. I think that's pretty good value here. Mike Evans is the guy I'm looking to buy if people aren't treating him like the player he was this year. All right, Team 7 up.
Yeah, that was what I was afraid you were going to say. Okay. Joe Burrow, Marvin Harrison, Chris Olave, Kyle Pitts, JSN, and Troy Franklin, rookie from Oregon. I have 4 receivers. I have a tight end and a quarterback. I'm seeing two or 3 quarterbacks that I like on the board. In a vague sense. I think I want to take one of them and lock in my second quarterback. I think this is a team that, albeit I don't have running backs right now, I think I'll get value with them later. I'm going to take Kirk Cousins, 706.
All right, so we will hit turbo mode here, and Team 6 is going to get its 3rd running back also, and we will go this team has Justin Jefferson and Garrett Wilson as well, so we'll go James Cook, and this team is in full contend mode.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, we can almost treat this like a real life startup where picks fly off the board real quick. Team 5, Lamar Jackson, Puka, Neighbors, Ayuk, Tua, Kittle. It is set up to contend this year. It does need a running back. I'm going to go ahead and take Pacheco here. I think that's pretty good value.
Yep, I agree. I was looking at that here. I will go. I have Stroud, Bijan, Trey McBride, Nico Collins, Zay Flowers, George Pickens. I will take Josh Jacobs here.
Yeah, he was a pretty good value in the startup that we're doing right now. I thought he went a little bit later than probably he should. I mean, In hindsight, I didn't really notice I forgot Jacobs was on the list. I probably would have taken him before Spears and James Cook a minute ago. Here's the hot dog water team with Jalen Hurts, a couple of receivers. It's got Hawkinson. We're tanking with this team.
I love how much you hate this team.
Let's just add another win later piece, and we'll go with the 111 here.
That makes sense to me. So this is team 2 that is going all gas, no brakes. Allen, CMC, Tyreek, JT, Debo, and Jared Goff. Everything's set up to win now.
Has this team traded its 25 first yet?
It has not.
They will be.
They will be.
It's already thinking about it. And you know what? I'm just going to hope that we can blame it all on the supposed core muscle injury mid-season, and I'm going to take Stephon Diggs here. And if he bounces, that's another thing I was thinking about. Brian's at the one spot with the total win now build, so not total. He's got Addison and a rookie pick, but
this team too. They heard that this league didn't have to pay its buy-ins years in advance, so they were like, "Yeah, I'm just playing 1 year, and I am bouncing out of this league, and I'm doing another startup next year."
Yep.
Son of a bitch. Okay. Yeah, bear with me here for a second. We got you know what? I'm gonna go running back here. I might go double tap running backs, which is wild to think about. I'm gonna go. Yeah.
Well, you're thinking I'll do the running backs, the best best available running back list. You got Javonte, Rashad White, Aaron Jones, Swift, Kamara, Eckler, Chubb, Pollard. So that's kind of Ramondre Stevenson.
I'm gonna go. Man, I'll do 112, and I'm gonna take Aaron Jones. Those are my 2 picks.
All right, this brings the juggernaut back on the clock.
Yeah, and I think this is where I'm gonna kind of just do my quick little 30-second tangent. I'm going to take Terry McLaurin here, and I do think that Washington is a great offense to invest in right now. They just hired Adam Peters, who's one of the hottest GM candidates from San Francisco. Their new owner is turning things around. I think they're going to hire Ben Johnson. This is not like the sad sack Washington franchise it has been. I think they're a strong organization to invest in right now in Dynasty.
All right, and the hot dog water team that has no idea what they're doing, they're going to take a win now player with full intentions of trading him away when he recoups some value. And when I say recoup, I mean recouper cup. And if he can get back some value, we're trading him like week 3.
Yeah, that was the other guy I was looking at. But yeah, man, Cup and Diggs, man, it's hard to know what to do with those 2 guys.
This guy at the 3 spot is absolutely spiraling. He has absolutely no idea what's happening. He doesn't even know what the settings are. But somehow, I promise you, this is the guy that gets lucky, and all of these guys hit. And he's like a year from now.
Team 3 is going to win next year somehow.
Yeah. He already has the 101 locked up, so like he's got some value built in already.
Yeah, so this is the CJ Stroud team. I'm going to take Matt Stafford, get my QB2. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I would, just because of the Achilles injury, I would almost prefer Stafford to Cousins. But like, to me, those are just back-to-back guys, like wherever you can get them. I think they're both solid values here as late win.
Stafford was incredible in the second half of the year.
Stafford was fucking awesome this year, like real life.
I had a team that lost Burrow and Herbert, and Stafford was one of the replacements along with Browning. And we lost in the championship after going undefeated in the regular season. We didn't lose because of Stafford and Browning. Let me just say.
Yeah, it's always a great reminder of how much things change in the course of one season. Like 4 months ago, we were talking about Stafford retiring. Imagine Diggs did not suffer an injury like that, at least kept him out of games, and he goes late 7th. He was going early 3rd, I believe, like in preseason. So a lot of value shifts here. Team 5, Lamar Jackson, Puka, Malik Neighbors, Ayuk, Tua, Kittle, and Pacheco. Pretty much a win now team with some young guys. I don't love this player in real life, but it's hard to argue against what he did fantasy wise. So I'm going to go ahead and take my RB2 here and take Rashad White. I think he's probably a decent value in the early to mid 8th.
All right, and then at the team 6 with Jefferson, Wilson start, already has 3 running backs and Deshaun Watson. All the quarterbacks kind of chewing up a bunch of the value. So I think what this team will do is just wait a whole nother round and hope to get maybe a Russ or a Baker in the next round. I don't see a lot of sense in doing one now. So we're going to hit at receiver again, get our third receiver. We'll go Amari Cooper.
Yep, I think that makes sense there.
This is the I guess this is the Joe Burrow, Marvin Harrison, Ohio State guys. I'm going to take Alvin Kamara. He was top 12 running back while also factoring in his suspension. So that's, to me, he's an obvious guy that's similar to CMC in the sense of he can age well and produce fantasy wise, whether he's good or not.
I like how this team picks 1 through 6, a bunch of young guys, but then with 7 and 8, it's like a classic productive struggle team. It's like 1 through 6 went young, 7 and 8 we got a couple old guys that if everything goes right, this team can contend.
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah, so at the 8th spot, the Jordan Love, Dak Prescott team. I don't know that this pick makes a ton of sense for this build, but I think one of the best values left on the board is a guy that rejuvenated his career this year. I expect to sign long-term in Tampa. I'm going to go ahead and take Baker Mayfield with the 8 pick.
Nice.
All right, so that brings up the Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence team. This team has taken 3 straight running backs, only has 1 receiver. So we will go best receiver on the board, and let's just say the board is bleak. It's Deontay Johnson, Chris Godwin, Keenan Allen, Calvin Ridley. I still think Deontay Johnson has really strong peripherals. If he can get a quarterback, I think wheels up for him to at least be kind of a back end wide receiver too. So I think this team can contend. Even though we're only wide receiver 2, Deontay Johnson, but has the 3 really strong running backs. And then if T-Law can turn things back around, I'm not optimistic. I do not have any Trevor Lawrence, but if it
and I think your Cup team might target this team to trade Cup to probably because it's not that far away.
All right, so I'm on the clock at 8:10. This is Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray, Jahmyr Gibbs, London, Rashee Rice, Devontae Adams, and Xavier Worthy rookie pick, which is 110. And I'm going to stop the slide. This is a tight end premium. I think this is baked in enough at this point that if he does retire, Todd's got it. Travis Kelce, it's a no-brainer at this time. I was praying and hoping that it would reach me at 8:10.
Yeah, I think that's great value. Late 8th for Kelce, like you said, if he retires, there's worse picks to kind of throw away there.
Tight end 11, by the way.
In the 7th and 8th round, go back to your 2023 startups, go back to your 2022 startups, look at the guys that were taken in the 7th and 8th round. I bet there were a whole lot of guys that went up in flames after a year or two. So if you can get one more awesome top 2 or 3 tight end season out of him, then I think it makes it basically all worth it. And here's the other thing. If he's awesome, or even if he's moderately awesome, if he's in that top 3 range, you can always trade him before the deadline. Somebody's going to want to pay up for that stretch run. Look at that team 2. That team is dying to trade for Kelce later in the year and then quit the league.
I couldn't believe he didn't take him. Honestly, I was almost banked that in.
The retirement thing is really scaring me from drafting.
Yeah, he's
Kelce
off my
right
board for another round or 2 in a start.
Yeah, I don't blame anybody for not wanting to. It's just at this point, for me personally, with this team build, I think I can get another tight end in round 11 that I don't hate, and worst case, I have them.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So we're at 111 in terms of draft picks, or 112 here.
8-11. Yep.
Yeah, team 11.
So I don't know how far you guys have gone into the rookies yet, but a guy that I don't really want to like, but a lot of NFL draft people really like and think he's going to get like mid-first draft capital is Bo Nix. So I'm going to go ahead and take Bo Nix here over like JJ McCarthy or anyone else at the 111. And like we said, we could do draft picks or players, but I think that pick and him makes sense with the build I have. And we're probably going to compete with Todd's 3 spot for the 101 next year.
Yeah, we misspoke earlier. We thought you meant what pick we were at in the draft. We're actually at the rookie 201.
Oh, 201.
That
Okay.
was 201 for Bo Nix. We're at the
Sorry.
team 11.
Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap the draft up here at the team 12. And I think we're going to go through and do our favorite team. And I'll go ahead and say this is my favorite build, favorite team. And it's no surprise because it has 0 running backs. It's either this one or the Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson start. But this one is Anthony Richardson, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Fields. And then we went back-to-back with Pittman and DJ Moore. And then Ingram, I liked the value of Will Levis in that 701. And here at the 8-12 final pick, we're still trying to contend a little bit with this team. And so I think taking a running back now probably makes sense. And I still like Ramondre Stevenson a lot. I think that he can be a mid-range RB2. And maybe getting away from Bill Belichick won't be the worst thing. And maybe they can get a quarterback in there, maybe like a Jaden Daniels that could help him out too. So this one, we will go Ramondre Stevenson at the 8-12 for the first running back for this team.
Brian, 8-round mock, your guy Tony Pollard not drafted. That's that rough year for our guy.
Yeah, he'll be soon after probably. Or I'd say like round 9, 10, that range.
Yeah,
That's
not.
probably
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Not
he's
anymore.
definitely going
taking in the round 9 range.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
so
yeah, that was a fun sad season.
So Todd mentioned his favorite team. Brian, what's your favorite team that you drafted here out of the 4?
Man, so like I would have to specify like it's not necessarily I don't think like necessarily the most competitive best team that I have of this group, but I like the team 7: Joe Burrow, Marvin Harrison, Olave, Pitts, JSN, Troy Franklin, Kirk Cousins, Alvin Kamara. I think that is a team like Todd I think mentioned, like the productive struggle that could easily pivot into like, oh yeah, we're contending here today right away. So
I like that team a lot. I mean, I really like the Jordan Love team.
I like that team too. I like that team a lot too.
It shaped up pretty solidly, yeah.
But my favorite team is going to be that all gas no brakes team, the Josh Allen CMC team. Where
the quit up
and you know the interesting thing about that, like we've been saying that team is stacked, loaded, etc. Man, like if Terry doesn't take that next step that I'm hoping he does next year, if Diggs really is washed, like if Debo gets hurt, like that team could easily just be mid, you know, like you never really know with some of these builds.
So I think as I've done a startup that's going on right now, we're in like around round 9 in that one. And then also doing this mock. I think my biggest takeaway and just remembering from a startup standpoint is figuring out what my tiers are of players and then trying to get the last player of that tier and stop worrying so much about like what's the ADP and think more about positional tiering. So like I view ETN as RB8 and like the very end of the elite running back group. And so that's a guy that if nobody else is valuing him, I think I'm interested in him. And if you think about like at receiver, I mentioned that massive tier of receivers that kind of stretches from wide receiver 10 or 11 to like wide receiver 20. Being fine with just getting the last guy from that tier, like not being more player agnostic and thinking about, okay, can I get some value elsewhere and just be willing to take the guy that nobody else is really wanting, which seems to be here, like Michael Pittman or DJ Moore. And I think in our draft, Brian, like DK Metcalf, Debo Samuel, Jordan Addison, similar to this one, like getting those guys in that range that we got at like wide receiver 25, 26, 27. There's an opportunity to gain some value for those guys to pop up into the teens. So I think that's really what I'm focusing on as I'm doing startups, is drafting at the end of the tiers and being a little more player agnostic.
Yeah, we couldn't really skip ahead of tiers here because we're like there's no trades, so we just kind of have to start a tier. But my two main takeaways from this startup and looking at the board that you guys are doing that we're going to cover next week, real life startup, the values in the mid fourth to like mid sixth round, I absolutely love. I would definitely like trading back to pick up as many of those picks as I can. And the last takeaway is I do think after pick 107, like the back end of the 2024 first round rookie picks do seem to be a little overlooked and undervalued in both drafts. Brian, you have any big takeaways from both drafts?
I think in general, like Todd kind of mentioned or hinted at with the ADP stuff that's all wonky right now with Sleeper's ADP, having a thought process versus just blindly like, oh, who are the next 5 available or whatever the case is. Like I think a lot of managers probably do. It gives you a massive advantage to have a thought process, a plan, and you're able to execute this more now than ever because of that wonkiness that people rely on usually. So I would encourage people to try and get into startups if you're prepared. And if you're not prepared, prepare so that when it does come to be, you can kind of have a massive advantage.
Yeah, well said. Tacking on a little bit to what Matt said about that 4, 5, 6 range, I really agree with that. I mean, if you could maybe trade back from your first round pick and you could end up in that early second, and you end up with like a Kyler Murray and a Jordan Love, but you're able to move like your 7th and 8th round picks into that 4, 5, 6 range. I think that's a nice move, trying to shove those guys to get as many top 6 round players as possible. Because obviously, like when we got into the 7th and 8th, it got kind of gross. I mean, we were taking Mike Evans, we're taking James Cook, we're taking
Travis
Terry
Kelce.
McLaurin, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ramondre Stevenson in the 8th. Like it's just not as comfortable as those 5th round picks of Zay Flowers or Deebo Samuel, Kyron Williams, ETN, those types of picks. So if you can try to maybe shuffle the board, move up from the 7th and 8th, that means you have to move back from the 1st and 2nd and kind of cluster in that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. I think that's
just one more addition. Sorry, that it's a matter of like roster flexibility. We mentioned it throughout the show. If you give yourself roster flexibility, you can make those types of value decisions, an extra wide receiver or, that type of stuff where if you really shove yourself into a win now situation, you're passing up possible value rookie picks and you're taking an Aaron Jones instead of a 109 or something like that. And because you're like, I have to win now. Those are the types of times where you're going to lose value. So give yourself as long as possible to define what that is that your roster is.
Yeah, definitely. Keeping flexibility is very important in these startups.
All right. We are the Dynasty Market Watch, now part of the Bulletproof family of podcasts. You can find me in the Bulletproof Patreon. So that's led by @DF Bean Counter on Twitter. So find me in the Patreon on Twitter. Brian is @Brian_O'Leary1. Matt is @Dynasty Peasant. I am @Dynasty SFlex. Thanks for joining.